What's going on, guys? We're back with some more news about AI. All the information you need to know without any of the hype. Let's jump right into it. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about OpenClaw and whether or not to use different models for that. Grok's coming out strong. And a lot of BS, frankly, about the future of software and the UI layer getting replaced. And we're going to talk about that a bit. And Lovable has a big data breach, maybe. They're trying to say it's not a data breach, that it's by design. We'll talk about that a little bit. So first, though, I want to get into a story that keeps going on and on and on, which is about Dario Amodei from Anthropic CEO saying that every job is going to be replaced, basically. So he keeps showing up on TV and telling people that jobs are going away, and it's really freaking people out. This is basically ridiculous nonsense from this man and needs to be stopped. It's probably a combination of trying to get a better investment by trying to say that they're basically the future of all work and getting this insane valuation that they can get if they can convince people of that. Plus, maybe a little bit of just eating from your own pie. He is definitely at the forefront of AI research with what's going on in Anthropic, and probably is convinced that the models are just getting stronger and stronger and going to take everything over. But it's such a misread about human labor and effort. And I think Jensen Huang just has a much better take on this, where he keeps reiterating again and again that there are going to be more and more jobs made available because of the AI. And basically what's happening is when you have a new technology, you're going to have more and more need for workers to execute all the different levels that are involved in bringing that technology to the market. So everything from electricians to the data centers to the actual execution. And really what we're talking about is a massive retraining that is going to happen with people in their jobs to sort of reassess what it even means to have a job. Because the fact is, in the next 1 to 5 years, most jobs that are like white collar in nature are going to shift from doing the job to now doing the job with AI. And so you can be vastly more effective, vastly more efficient, and have much more output if you're using AI to do a big part of your work. But there's a lot that is involved in that in terms of managing data properly, managing connections properly, managing agents properly, and feeding prompts properly, and a whole orchestration that happens. And so the fact is, there's still a lot of work to be done, even within the white collar fields. And even as AI replaces a lot of the labor, I mean, we see this in coding, right? Where you're able to code very fast and release things very fast, but there's still a lot of work that you need to do, and you can now do more. But just because you can do more doesn't mean you do less. And so the best companies in the world are going to just do more, get more output, and they're going to do it with the same size teams they had before. Now, are they going to continue to hire people that have no AI experience, that don't know how to use AI, that just do their jobs the old way? Well, no. Now, for each trade, for each white collar trade, the timeline of this is different, right? We see coding, low level coding is being replaced, and that's happening very fast. And in other professions, it's slower. But regardless, over the next 1 to 5 years, people are going to be changing what they're doing and doing it from like an AI first work. So that's just the reality. Now, let's go to the story about Lovable. So there was a data breach, and it's kind of being argued now. Lovable's pushing back and saying it's not a data breach, that they're making things public. But basically, I mean, Lovable is now a multi-billion-dollar company, and they're trying to make a lot of moves to stay relevant because Claude and other platforms are allowing you to do the same thing you can do in Lovable. But Lovable has the infrastructure and the integrations that these products like Claude, for example, out of the box doesn't have. So there's still a lot of advantages to Lovable if you want to use it. Now, what happened is that people are saying that they are able to access other users' source code, database credentials, AI chat histories, and customer data, even with a free account. And so you can just see what's in their code bases. And this is a big problem. And apparently this was a bug that was submitted 48 days ago that is still listed in their active bugs that they're working on that has not actually been dealt with. Now, Lovable, in a response, basically said that, well, I'll read it exactly. They said, we were made aware of concerns regarding the visibility of chat messages and code on Lovable projects with public visibility settings. To be clear, we did not suffer a data breach. Our documentation of what public implies was unclear, and that's a failure on us. Specifically for public projects, chat messages used to be visible. It's no longer visible. When it comes to code of public projects, that is intentional behavior. It's a little bit ridiculous, to be honest, because why would that be intentional behavior? So they need a better explanation, and this seems like a big problem. People are jumping on this and saying that this is just a ridiculous PR statement, and the fact is that code should not be made public, even if the project is public. So that's a little bit weird. Now, a lot of people now are moving to Grok on OpenClaw. So that's the next story I want to talk about. So Claude is just really expensive for OpenClaw, and Grok is performing really, really well and much cheaper. And this is true. There's a lot of models that are better than Claude in terms of price. Google models are also really, really good. So Claude right now, the verdict for most people is that they are the top of the line. Some people argue GPT Codex from OpenAI is really good, but basically those two are the top two. But Grok is really coming along, and people have been kind of sleeping on it, in part because the UI rollout is not as advanced. Like the way the app works today is nowhere near as advanced as Claude. But as a model, Grok just keeps getting better and better and faster. And Elon recently announced, XAI should say, announced a major investment with Intel and some other partners that are building massive data centers for compute, and basically within the next few years are going to be having more compute power than all of the current chips combined today. And a lot of that is going to be done in space. So it's going to be really interesting seeing where XAI heads, with Grok being part of XAI, of course. And they have a big move coming. You don't want to bet against Elon. He has a history of executing things faster in his companies than other competitors. And the integration that he does, the vertical integration he always tries to do, basically meaning that he controls the end-to-end of the supply chain, is one of the ways he gets a major advantage. And no other company today is really pushing to control the end-to-end of the supply chain, meaning like Elon and XAI are talking about putting data centers in space. And that's something, of course, they can do with SpaceX, and of course, with Tesla, with solar energy and everything, and batteries. They potentially have an advantage in the future in terms of power sourcing. So we'll see where that goes. But I would definitely bet on Grok becoming one of the leaders, if not the leader. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them overtake everybody within the next few years. Now, it might not happen. Anthropic and OpenAI certainly are very strong. Of course, Google, very strong. But again, Elon just has a history of executing faster than other people. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this whole issue of AI replacing software. So people are pointing out that Starbucks, who recently opened up their app to be able to use ChatGPT through an MCP. So what it means is you can go to ChatGPT and you can order from Starbucks through the MCP connection to the Starbucks app, and you can not have to use the app. So you can just place your order on ChatGPT directly by talking to it. But the fact is that it's really inefficient. And, this gets to an issue of, well, first let me tell you what's inefficient. So Max Weinbach on X, at MWEINBACH, Max Weinbach. So he compares like ordering on ChatGPT versus ordering from Starbucks app. And the Starbucks app, you can order something in 19 seconds that takes 103 seconds on ChatGPT. And there's this whole argument that like the models themselves, the model companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and the ones I mentioned are going to kind of overtake all software. And I think that that logic is completely flawed, because the fact is that all of these models actually have a bigger risk of becoming like commodities of compute and intelligence that you can order, like if it was a power grid or something. But the difference being that you can buy from any provider you want. So we see Anthropic making all these pushes to introduce more and more into the application layer, because they know that they need to compete and win on the application layer, because their valuations have made it such that they need to command huge amount of revenue coming in order to recoup the investment. The problem is that if they become just a really strong model that you can order through the software, like you have a software app and you can select your model and you select Anthropic, or you can choose a different one. The problem is that they're all going to compete on price, and they might be marginally more intelligent one or the other for certain use cases, but the price is going to dictate it because there's a lot to choose from. I mean, there's several. There's going to be open source models. There's going to be local models. There's going to be probably dozens of really strong model companies that you can select in any software that isn't owned by these companies. So just to be super clear, any software that's created, if there's an AI component, will probably, if not today, if they don't have this functionality today, will introduce very soon the functionality of being able to select the model of your choice. And most softwares that use AI, you can already do that. And so people are just going to shop around for the best model at the best cost. And so that's going to be devastating to businesses that have taken, 600, 800 million in investment, 600, 800 billion in investment already for like Anthropic and OpenAI. They can't just be a cheap commodity. So they have to win on the application layer. So they're trying to get into software and say, well, you should just do everything through Claude. The problem is that any software company can copy the same functionality that these AI companies create and allow you to select your model, or allow you to select a local model if you want, or change different models. And when it comes to privacy and things, that's going to be a big advantage. When it comes to uptime, that's going to be a big advantage. I mean, even today, Anthropic goes down pretty regularly for a big company. They don't have the best uptime. It's like 99%, but it's nowhere near what it should be for most software. And so why not, open it up to select different models? So the point is that software, I think, has a much better chance than people think of continuing to maintain a dominant position in terms of the user. So users, are still going to use the best software, and they're probably going to prefer to use a software that is LLM agnostic, that can select from different models and potentially even deploy local models. So that's just the reality. And I think then the argument, therefore, that these LLM companies are going to just like eat the whole software layer is totally flawed. Now, obviously, in the short term, there is a big hit that a lot of the big players in software are taking because their moat is evaporating. Like if you're Salesforce, for example, Salesforce recently allowed and enabled MCP connections and API connections for all of their product. So it means like you don't actually need to log into Salesforce. You could just have an AI access it through MCP or API and run the same functionality that you want on any particular system. So because of that, we see the valuations tanking in the software, because up until now, they generally, like a good growing software firm has generally enjoyed like a 20x price to earnings ratio in the public stock markets. And now that's dropping to like 7 to 13 is kind of the range. And, in large part, that makes sense. So in the short term, a lot of these rapid growth software companies, people are saying, well, their growth might slow, or, there's a big risk. So people are kind of backing off from the investment. And that's definitely, I think, smart. But in the slightly longer run, I mean, midterm to long run, software, I think, is here to stay. Software companies are here to stay. And, most software that's going to be built today is going to be from like an AI first perspective. But I think you have major opportunity if you're a software firm to continue to exist. And let's get into a couple more stories now. Cybersecurity, there's been a lot of breaches recently, like Vercel recently announced an incident. And the fact is, like, offensive AI attacks are rising. And that means that there's an opening for cybersecurity to patch those up. Now, my question with cyber is, like, a motivated actor with AI technology just seems like they can do so much damage so quickly and so easily. So how is it possible that a defensive actor can possibly deal with it? I think it's a big problem that we see, whispers of with like the recent release of the Mythos model from Anthropic only being released to certain major big companies first, and then they'll roll it out later. But the reason they did that is because they were concerned about the cyber implications of the product. And I think it's the right play. I mean, certainly you're going to have like a balancing that's going to happen where people are going to have to figure out how to patch vulnerabilities with AI faster than attackers can attack. But again, I feel like the motivation for the attackers is so high, and the ability of AI to exploit vulnerabilities is so fast and so extreme, it's going to be difficult for big companies to contend with cyber risks. And I think we're going to see more and more problems in that area. Now, let's see if there's any other stories I want to cover here. So, that's pretty much it. Those are the big stories that are coming out now. And I'll continue to keep you updated on more stories as they drop. We focus on the biggest news in AI without all the hype, so you can just understand what's important, what you need to know, and know and prosper from that. So thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.